Today you have women climbing telephone poles, repairing lines, jumping out of aircraft if they want to go airborne infantry. So the doors are wide open now because we're integrated. So, but back when I first joined, jobs were limited. And to get promoted, you had to compete with the men.
Rita Palafox joined the Women's Army Corps at a time when there were very few opportunities for women, whether it was in the Army or on Maui, where she grew up. She left her plantation community to provide for herself and became witness to one of the most transformative eras in modern American history. Rita Palafox next on Long Story Short.
Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox is Hawaii's first weekly television program produced and broadcast in high definition.
Aloha mai kako, I'm Leslie Wilcox. Rita Margarita Palafox served in the Women's Army Corps, or WAC, for 20 years, retiring at the rank of Master Sergeant in 1976. Her military career spanned a time of profound change in America, from her encounter with segregation in the 1950s to working as an Army recruiter at the height of protests against the Vietnam War. Growing up in a small plantation community on the north side of Maui in the 40s and 50s did not prepare her for the culture shock she would later experience, but it did teach her important survival skills.
I was born in Sparklesville, Maui, 1937. Community living was wonderful. I had so many aunties and uncles. As everybody kind of was like one family. We shared problems, went to school together, some from grade school to high school. The thing that I did not appreciate as a youngster was the outside toilet facilities. Hated that. But we learned to cope and live with it. Everybody I would consider, whether you're Japanese, Portuguese, Filipino, the living was hard. The women some worked in the cane field to help to provide food for the family. My father was fortunate to work in a plantation store, but he had a hard job. He had to go to each camp, and there was 10 of them, to take orders from the families, and then take it back to the store and fill those orders and deliver it again the next day. I was about 4 or 5 years old when I used to go with him. He was my babysitter, being the youngest in the family. So I watched him do this and said, whoa, what a hard job. But then Mama Sang and Papa Sang and my aunties and all my uncles used to see me in the car and bring things for me. So I kind of benefited from this wonderful trip. But I learned how hard living was. If people didn't, unite together to survive, it was hard living.
And he was the plantation store manager, which I don't think a lot of Filipino guys did in plantation days, right?
Mm-hmm. He also loved music. He could go to the store and buy a Glenn Miller, let's say one of his favorite songs, and he could write notes for every instrument. And I told him, how did you learn all this? He said, it was a gift. And he started putting together a band. Till this day, he never told us how he managed to get them all dressed in Navy uniform. They rented it, but I don't think it was ever returned. We used to call it the old Filipino Glenn Miller Band. Bothered my mom because she needed his help sometime, but she knew he loved his music.
Your mother was a Vares,
yes.
Portuguese stock?
Yes.
And then your dad, a Palafox, Filipino?
Yes.
And tell me about how those ethnic groups affected your upbringing.
Well, to be honest with you, our camps we had Filipino camps, Japanese camps,
Portuguese camps?
Portuguese camp, Korean, Chinese, Hawaiian. And the camp we lived in, we always get picked by the other kids because it's supposed to be diverse. Outside bathrooms, the facilities weren't as good as the ones in the other camp. They had indoor toilet facilities, little things like that.
So people teased you for having the junkest facility?
Yeah, and you know, like with the low class and stuff like
because
that.
Because which camp were you in?
I was in Camp 1. They used to call that this
Filipino camp?
Filipino camp. But if later on, as they ran out of home facilities for the other race, like the Japanese, they kind of brought them into our camp, which was good, you know. So we had a mixed plate after. But anyway, it was hard. Being Filipino, I'm going to be very honest with you. They used to call us bug-bugs, you know.
It's usually the newest and the newer immigrant group that gets picked on, right? And Filipinos were newer.
Yes. I went to Maui High School, and I always used to tell my brother, we only go to school to eat lunch. We were that motivated in the sense that, you know, I love history and I love science. So those are the two subjects I made sure I paid strict. I was not what you would consider a college-bound student at that time.
Just weren't interested?
Just weren't interested, and knowing my parents could not afford it anyway. You know, but they did save a lot for the two oldest. They did very well in school. In fact, all three of them went to Catholic school. They pulled them out of the public school because they were complaining that the teachers were not fair. You know, they favored certain
ethnic groups?
Yes.
Which ethnic groups?
Japanese.
In public schools?
In public schools. My brother would say, I raised my hand, I had the answer, and they called the next person, you know, the other person. So my mom and dad talked and said, it's about time we sacrifice and pull our kids out of public school and send them to Holy Rosary, Catholic.
But not you.
I lucked out because I said I didn't want to go to a Portuguese school. No, it was a joke in the family.
Because Catholic schools have
most of the Portuguese.
Many Catholics
right.
are Portuguese.
So, and I said I went to school with all my friends from the camp, and I want to stay with them. My father said, no, you go in. I said, no, I'm not, so I won. I said, Dad, save your money. I'm barely making it through grade school. I can save you a lot of money, Dad.
So interesting that you weren't a motivated student.
You know, my friends used to say, I'm going to be a beautician. I'm going to be this. I'm going to work in a bank. I'm going to be a nurse. The only thing that really got my interest was the military, because my father was in the National Guard. He spent 26 years there. And he was a wonderful sharpshooter.
Expert rifleman?
Expert, and he had his own rifle team, and they used to compete with all the other island National Guardsmen and reserve, and they did pretty good. When I became a sophomore, I started thinking, hey, you know, you better start thinking what you're going to do, because time is going fast. So I thought about the military.
And what was there for women at that time?
Very little. The jobs were scarce, but you know, just to kind of, what motivated me is that they had some technical fields that I may have been interested in, and definitely they had the GI Bill, which is a college degree. So if I could progress myself and find myself, hopefully in the military as a starter, maybe there's a possibility I can, you know, find myself.
After graduating from Maui High School, Rita Palafox went right into the service, volunteering for the Women's Army Corps. She was sent to Alabama for basic training, and on the journey there, had her first encounter with segregation.
We knew there was some racial problems, but we didn't know how severe it was until we went by train, and our first stop was Texas. And we had a stop over there, and it's the first time we were exposed by the word whites only bathroom, colored or black bathroom only. So, you know, we figured with our group, we had 8 of us. We had some Filipino gals, a Hawaiian gal, and You're looking at me, mixed plate, dark, my tan. Well, we were confused and scared. For me, I have to use the word culture shock. It took a while for me to look at that and say, my God, we just raised our right hand, swear under oath that we will support and defend this wonderful country of us, and this is the best they could do for us.
What year was that?
This was 1955.
And you had to choose what bathroom to go to, white or non-white?
Right in Texas. And so we decided to flip a coin. And we ended up going into the black side of the house. And they were just as shocked as we were because, whoa, here's a group of, so some of them thought we were white trash trying to make trouble. So we told them we were from Hawaii. The minute we said that, boy, the whole world stopped. This one gal held the door open and said, I'll hold the door because you have to pay a dime to use the bathroom. It was not free. So we apologized. It was sad. And later on, we just told them, I wonder why they don't have one for beige.
And everybody had a laugh about that. What about riding the bus? Anything happen on that score?
Yes, our first pass, which we worked so hard for, to go downtown and shop and hopefully go to a Chinese restaurant and have some hopefully good Chinese food. Well, I was the last to board the bus. And I know there was a little bit confusion because I could sit on the group of our group that went on the bus. I mean, like.
Where were they sitting? The ones who already got on the bus, where were they sitting?
Well, I don't know what the bus driver really told them until I thought I heard back of the bus. So my 5 senses went 24/7, like bing, bing, the vision got sharper, the hearing. I said to myself, oh my God, not on a bus. So by the time I got to my turn to pay, I looked at the bus driver and I said, did you say the back of the bus? He said, well, where? Yeah. Kind of, he was just as stunned seeing all this. So I said, you know, sir, in Hawaii, we fight for the back seat.
And that's so true.
And over here, we can go in, we can go to.
Now it's reserved for you.
And he said, Hawaii. He served with some folks from Hawaii, and he apologized in the sense, he said, you tell them sit anywhere they want, but they were already sitting down by the time I got. So I went to the back and asked this nice gal in the back, I said, you mind if I sit with you? She said, oh no. So I sat down, she said, what happened? And I told her. She just touched my hand and said, thank you.
She was a black woman?
Yes. So I asked permission to sit back there because at that part, you know, and I told her, I think I did tell her I wish they had one for beige. And I said this was our first pass, and what a way to go. So there was a lot of bumps in the road.
What a disconnect after swearing patriotically.
Yes, that's what hurt
Stand
me the
united.
most, right? And how proud my father was when he arrived here, you know. And to be greeted like this, I'm saying, my God, this can't be America, the land of the free.
So you volunteered for the Women's Army Corps.
Correct.
Which many people now don't really maybe recall that there was a separate branch of, a separate division for women, and it was separate and not equal because pay, power, very different in the Women's Army Corps.
And you had to compete when promotions come in. You then have to compete with the guys.
Tell me, were there jobs that were earmarked for women and others for men, or were you competing for the same slots?
Well, when I joined, I would say we were lucky as a women's army. We had 30 jobs available.
For women?
For women. The rest was open for the men. I lucked out because I got on-the-job training. I guess my typing skills were so good. They said, don't spend money on them. Just send her on to her next assignment as a clerk typist. I knew pretty much what I was getting to. We had a wonderful recruiter. I mean, she let us pretty much know what was going on. Not too much with the problems with segregation and all that good stuff. She touched off a little bit, but not enough. We only took the minimum 2-year service to find ourselves, for me. And if I could not, in 2 years, realize, what I should do, then I was in trouble. I mean, it was an opportunity,
So in 2 years, did you find yourself?
I sure did. We have a bulletin board in every WEC detachment. And I used to check that bulletin board like a hawkeye. And when I was stationed in Oakland, my first assignment, Army Terminal, I saw on the board Okinawa. I said, whoa, wow. But I knew I didn't have enough service time. You needed a year unless you waiver your time. So I only came in for 2 years. I had to have 3 years. So I went right to the first sergeant and asked what paperwork I needed to waiver and take that extra year. And she said, oh, I don't know, you still, should stay a little longer, Rita. And I said, no, I want to go. So I lucked out and got Okinawa. So when I got there, my first sergeant was Charles Las Banas. And that name is, for me, legendary. I mean, so I said, wow. He was very strict with me. He said, don't you make trouble or bring shame to this, He just wanted me to make sure when I, just stay, watch what I do. And he was very protective. I told him, Jesus Christ, I left Hawaii to get away from my father, and look at you.
So was he talking about dating?
Dating, and be careful because, we were young, and he used to take me home and met the family, and pretty much felt very adopted by this wonderful family. What a wonderful soldier, professional. So I consider him a mentor. So through his wonderful guidance and he kind of instilled me. I think I pretty much found myself, and I thank him because I believe in mentors. I think this is why I could honestly sit here and tell you it wasn't for all these wonderful people who cared, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today.
Did you have a significant other?
No, at the time when I joined, we could not, the Women's Army Corps, once you got married, you had to get out. So, we are...
You're marrying the Army.
You were married to the Army until the law changed, and it didn't change until we integrated.
Which was when?
I would say between 75, 76, maybe after that.
After her 2-year assignment in Okinawa ended, Rita Palafox re-enlisted in the Women's Army Corps. She was next stationed at Fort Ord, California, before heading to Fort Lawton, Washington, where she was one of 12 women picked to be a senior missile tracker. Her second 3-year term of service was almost over when yet a new opportunity opened up.
Doris Caldwell. She was a young captain at that time. She knew I was thinking about getting out of the service when I was there in Seattle. So she kind of sneaky through or politely knew the director of the Women's Army Corps was coming, and she said, Rita, if you had one job that you'd like, which job would you take in the Army? I said, recruiting, knowing the chances of me getting Army recruiting in Hawaii was, forget it. You had to be able...
Why would you want to recruit? Because this is during the Vietnam era.
Yes.
And, it was a hard sell in Hawaii,
because
in many cases.
Reason, like I said, as you progress through your journey, you grow up a little bit, you start finding yourself, and you said, wow, I wonder what I'd be like if, I could share my journey with the people that I really have high respect for, our local kids. I mean, for me, there's quality here. The family, the tradition of the Nisei or the Japanese, the 442nd. History is here, and I'll be done if I didn't get recruiting.
The Vietnam War, of course, became a very unpopular war. Was it unpopular at the time you were recruiting?
Pretty much. In fact, Patsy Mink and Abercrombie was doing their thing with the University of Hawaii. I'm not against demonstrating. I think it's honorable. I think that's what we, fight for, and to have our freedom of speech and stuff. But when they go across the line, yeah, we have problems in Hawaii, but not as bad as California. Burning of the flags, draft cards, walking around with packages over their head. The part that hurt me the most, our recruiting station was on Mililani, Halikuwila Street, next to the unemployment office. And President Johnson came to visit with Inoue to give a speech at Iolani Palace. I went with my commanding officer, and they were so loud and I was so embarrassed that these folks were, as the president was trying to talk, they were yelling and screaming and doing whatever with packages over their head. I went up to one of them and I said, if you believe so strong against the Vietnam War, take the package off your head. I know they weren't from Hawaii. Then you have these kids that, not to be drafted, come in and say, I want to volunteer. There's the balance. I said, my God, here's this young one guy putting a package over his head, demonstrating against the wall, probably will never serve. And here's the kids still coming in the door saying, I want to go in the Army and volunteer.
How did you feel about the Vietnam War at that time?
Pretty much, I'm not one for wars. I did a lot of visits to cemeteries. I still have a hard time.
But you still volunteered, asked for the recruiting job.
Yes.
with unsettled feelings about war.
Wars. There's a lot of us feel the same way, even the ones that went there. And some went back for second tour because in their heart, especially if they lose a comrade at arms, their friend, they felt, gee, I lived and he didn't, I want to go back. And they knew at that time it was not a fair situation. They did not know a lot of things that was going on, and it was troubling for them, but they went back because they lived and their friend didn't. One of the things when I was picked as the recruiter here in Hawaii, I knew I was already in trouble because the recruiting station know for you to get in recruiting, you had to be a recruiter. Well, I was brand new, fresh, little warning signs that if I don't produce, the door I came in would be open to go out kind of thing. I saw this recruiter by the name of Joseph Ha'o. He, top recruiter in the nation. And I said to myself, who best can train me than him? He said, you know what? A lot of the schools have ROTC. The Cabral brothers was with Kamehameha School. So he knew them. He said, I'm going to call them and see what they can do for you. I said, I want to go to Kamehameha School. He said, forget it. I don't think the principal going to let you in. I said, well, we can try. But the Cabral brothers got me in. And I was greeted by the president. I think her name was Clark. She said, you can talk to them, but they're all college bound. I said, okay, at least I have the opportunity. Thank you very much. So I wore my dress blues. I went up there. So I gave my presentation, and I was shocked. After I was done, about 5 of them came up to me. He says, can we talk to you privately? The recruiter, I said, I'd love to have you guys. So they came down. The principal wasn't too choked up, but they came down and they went in the service. Just to make a long story short, these kids, I know they were good. If you live in a dorm, they had white glove inspection. Basic training would be a breeze for them. They went in there and got a letter from the director of the Women's Army Corps. She got a letter from the commandant of the Women's Army Corps in Alabama, and she said she was so proud that there was a group of young women that came in and broke every record at the training center. American Spirit Award was the top. Outstanding training. Every category that they had, our good old Kamehameha School did it.
And that didn't keep the young women from going to college either. In fact, they would have their college paid for if they stayed in.
In fact, I had a feedback from one of them. She thanked me. She said, you know, I saved my parents a lot of money. I got something they could not afford. She was a good student, and thanks to the Army, she got her degree.
Did the headmaster let you back in?
No problem.
After 9 years of recruiting in Hawaii, Rita Palafox was proud to be asked to establish a recruiting center on Guam. 3 years later, the Guam legislature acknowledged her for meritorious work. Rita Palafox left recruiting to become a drill sergeant back in Alabama at the same basic training camp where she started her Army career 15 years earlier. She had received many commendations by the time she retired in 1976. Moving home to Hawaii, she spent the next 21 years working for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Mahalo to Maui girl Rita Palafox, retired and living in Windward, Oahu at the time of this conversation in 2017, for your service to our country in active duty and civilian roles over a career that saw tremendous change in America. And thank you for joining us. For PBS Hawaii and Long Story Short, I'm Leslie Wilcox. Aloha, ahui ho.
For audio and written transcripts of all episodes of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, visit pbshawaii.org. To download free podcasts of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, go to the Apple iTunes Store or visit pbshawaii.org.
Danho was my best friend because every group that graduated or day before they finished their basic training, the last song they play before bedtime is the Taps, and I used to do my walk and give them my farewell speech. And I said, I would like for you to meet my best friend, and I turn on my tape recorder and Don Ho would come on and say, I'd like to dedicate this song to my family or to the audience, and then he sings, I Will Remember You. And I said, as soon as he got through singing, I would say to them, bring some aloha wherever you go, whatever you do. Show respect, love one another, and spread some aloha throughout this world. We need it.